All right, after his controversial statements and alliances were revealed, Green Job czar Van Jones was forced to step down late Saturday night after midnight. Now, it would be easy to dismiss Jones's appointment as a fluke and to assume his radical allegiances were accidentally overlooked by administration vetters, but that is not the case. Van Jones signifies the radicalism of this administration, and he was appointed to his position precisely because of his radical beliefs. Now, the White House itself has testified to this fact. Just last month, senior Obama advisor Valerie Jarrett told the crowd just how long she'd been watching and admiring Van Jones. Let's take a look.
Van Jones, we were so delighted to be able to recruit him into the White House. We've been watching him really he's not that old, but for as long as he's been active out in Oakland and all of the ways that he has, the creative ideas that he has. And so now we have captured that, and we have all of that energy and enthusiasm in the White House.
All right, so we know the White House sought out Van Jones, which begs the question, how many more like him are serving in our government? Is Van Jones just the tip of the iceberg? We know, for example, there's John Holdren, the science and technology advisor, who has advocated compulsory abortion. And then there's Cass Sunstein, the Harvard law professor, who wants to ban hunting and grant rights to livestock, wildlife, and pets. Now, we can only conclude that it's time to take a much closer look at who exactly this president has now serving in our government. And joining me now to discuss all of this, Chairman of the GOP, Michael Steele. Michael, it raises so many different questions.
Oh, yes,
well, let me get your initial thoughts about what happened with Van Jones, and I want to talk specifically whether or not you think there are people that should be fired in this administration. But your thoughts on him first.
Well, I think on the Van Jones case, and I think it's emblematic of all the czar positions that are out there, is that we just don't know, Sean, that much about them. But what we're beginning to understand is that there is at least an intellectual link between these individuals and the President of the United States, which goes back to what I've been saying since 2008, and that is we don't know what his philosophical grounding is. So when this pops up, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, this guy is an avowed communist, he said this, he signed this petition. Is the President in bed with this? Does he support this? And I think what the Washington Press Corps needs to do right now is ask one question, Mr. President. Did you or did you not agree with what Van Jones articulated and stood for?
All right, but
because that begins to open up a number of doors and understanding why the rest of this is playing out the way it is with these other czars.
We spent a lot of time on this program, Michael, talking about the history of Barack Obama's radicalism. Rashid Khalidi and Father Flager and Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn and Reverend Wright.
Yeah, but Sean, you were dismissed, Sean. That's the difference.
No, I was beaten up.
See,
I was beaten up for it.
No, you were that. There's no doubt you were that. But what you did your homework. You said, all right, fine. Let's take a look at and see what the philosophical orientation of the man who wants to be president is, because that's what we've done with every other president.
Let me show something.
We had some grounding there, but you didn't in this case.
All right, but now with that set up, the history of radicalism that we know about, I'm looking at a number of people that I want to examine. Let's go back, first of all. This was a guy, for example, that supported Mumia Abu-Jamal, the cop killer. This is a guy that signed this 9/11 Truth Commission, whether or not our government was responsible or knew about 9/11. The day after 9/11, you know, he goes on to support solidarity for those who are victims of American imperialism. And then let's roll this videotape of Van Jones talking on two separate occasions on race issues.
You've never seen a Columbine done by a black child. Never. They always say, we can't believe it happened here, we can't believe it was these suburban white kids. It's only them.
But today, wait a minute, you know, you're regulating, but you're not regulating equally, and the white polluters and the white environmentalists are essentially steering poison into the people of color communities because they don't have a racial justice frame.
It's like, is it possible they didn't know? Is it possible?
Yeah, no, they knew. No, they knew, and this was, again, like the other czars that you've referenced, this is part of a package of philosophies that the president is bringing to his administration. I think Congressman Mike Pence this weekend said it best in calling for a further examination into this and having individuals who are in these roles scrutinized under the cabinet process of government to make sure that we understand fully where they're coming from and whether or not these are the beliefs and the ideologies that make sense for our country.
See, I think the issue of the president's entire credibility is at stake here, because when the issue of Jeremiah Wright came up during the debate with John McCain, you know, he said, oh, I'll check in with Warren Buffett and Joe Biden and very mainstream people. Here's the question I have. When you have Eric Holdren, his science advisor, who spoke out in defense of compulsory abortion and sterilization, when you have a State Department lawyer, Harold Koh, who says the U.S. should follow Sharia law in some cases, this guy Cass Sunstein, who wants to give rights to pets and ban hunting, you know, the question is, this is not just one mistake here. What does this tell you about this president? Is he presenting a more moderate face to the American people, but in reality he is a radical himself?
I think that that's more the script right there, Sean. I think that there is this moderate picture, and tomorrow night in the speech you're going to hear a very moderate speech with very conservative undertones to it to try to, you know, continue that image. The problem is, the president himself said, judge me by the people I surround myself with. And if this is the standard, then you're explaining a lot by not saying anything. In other words, we understand exactly what you're thinking because it's reflected in the writings, in the words and utterances of the very individuals you brought into your cabinet, into your inner circle in the West Wing as czars.
Are there any? Go ahead, finish.
No, I was going to say, so my question then becomes, do you agree with the philosophy that calls for, mandatory abortions? Do you agree with the philosophy that says, as Van Jones did, that Columbine was basically a white thing?
Yeah.
Do you agree with all of this? And if you do,
all right, let me ask you
that
this.
Tells us something. If you don't, then why are you bringing these people into your circle?
Are there any other people that I have mentioned, or any of the other people that have pretty radical views that you think, as the chairman of the RNC, that you think should be removed and removed immediately, or that you want investigations into?
Well, I think, quite frankly, the fact that the situation with Van Jones has elevated to the level that it has, that all of these czars, every last one of them, should go through a vetting process that's public, that is complete, and that involves the advisor consent function of the United States Senate. These are individuals, Sean, who are now writing the policy of this nation for our secretaries who would formally write them to execute. So you've now inserted a whole nother level of government here and a process that I think needs a little bit more scrutiny than has been given. And it says a lot about this vetting process, vaunted vetting process that the administration talked about at the beginning.
I think it also says a lot about the president.
Not so good now.
I think, we have a lot more to come on this. Michael, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it.